She pretended to be his girlfriend for money, but what he confessed left her in shock hello. Before we start, I want to know where you're watching from. Leave your city or country in the comments. It'll be really cool to learn a little about you. And if you like love stories full of emotion, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That way, you help it grow and stay updated with all the new things we prepare with lots of care just for you. Shall we begin? Emily stared out the narrow apartment window, where the scorching Austin afternoon sun poured in strong, making the air feel almost tangible, heavy, suffocating. The distant noise of traffic and the hum of air conditioners from nearby buildings formed an oppressive soundtrack for that anxious afternoon. She gripped a yellow envelope in her trembling hands, the sound of crumpling paper quiet, almost a desperate sigh. Inside were all the unpaid bills, the overdue rent, the electricity bill about to be cut off, the loan threatening to swallow the little stability her family had. Emily was 26 years old, fair-skinned with a slight tan from long walks to save. On transportation, dark blonde hair falling in messy waves over her shoulders, and green eyes now shining with a mix of exhaustion and quiet determination. She wore a simple blouse and worn jeans, clothes that reflected her daily fight to survive in the Texas city. Her younger sister was sleeping in the next room, sick, and the responsibility of caring for her weighed like a constant shadow. Suddenly, the sound of a phone ringing broke the heavy silence. A message appeared on the screen. "I have a proposal for you. It could change your life. Can we talk?" Jason. Emily frowned, surprised. Who was this Jason? She didn't know him, but she desperately needed to hear what he had to say. The next day, Emily walked into a fancy cafe downtown. The smell of freshly ground coffee mixed with the sweet aroma of pies filled the air. She spotted Jason sitting at a corner table, his face partially lit by the sunlight coming through the large windows. Jason was 30 years old, pale-skinned, almost alabaster, with dark brown hair neatly combed and blue eyes that seemed to pierce the soul. His flawless appearance, well-tailored suit, polished shoes, and a posture that radiated power made it clear he belonged to a completely different world than hers. He stood when he saw her, with a restrained smile, and spoke with a steady voice, yet carrying a rare sincerity. "Emily, I know it's not usual to get a proposal like this, but I need you to pretend to be my girlfriend, just for a short time, until I close an important deal with investors and convince my family I'm settled." Emily sat down slowly, her heart racing. "But why me?" "I'm nobody from your world," she said, looking him in the eyes, trying to understand the intentions behind that unlikely offer. Jason sighed, looking away for a moment as if fighting something inside. "Because you're real. Because I need someone authentic, even if everything around us is a lie. It's a facade, but it's the only way to protect everything I've built." She bit her lip, feeling the weight of that decision. The need to save her family, to pay the bills, spoke louder than fear or pride. "I accept," she said finally, voice trembling, "but this will be hard for me." "For me too," he answered, with a sincerity that made the air between them feel heavier. In the days that followed, the meetings were meticulously planned. Dinners at fancy restaurants, charity events in city mansions, outings where they were watched as an ideal couple. But beneath forced smiles and hands that avoided each other, both carried a silent emptiness, a fear that the lie would be more painful than they could bear. One cold night, after a charity event lit by crystal chandeliers, Emily walked beside Jason through the quiet, deserted streets of Austin's historic district. She could no longer hold back the truth pounding in her chest. "Jason, I don't know if I can keep pretending to be someone I'm not. This lie is consuming me." He stopped, looked at her with eyes that seemed to hold a contained storm, and said in a hoarse voice, "I don't know if I can keep pretending I don't care either." For a moment silence fell between them, heavy with an emotion neither was ready to admit, a sign of the internal battles and surprises fate still held. The night was late in Austin when Jason entered his downtown apartment, a sophisticated loft with glass walls reflecting the vibrant city lights. The space, though modern and impeccably decorated with minimalist furniture in neutral tones, gave off a heavy, almost palpable loneliness. In the middle of that cold atmosphere, Jason looked like a displaced figure, wearing a dark suit that barely hid the tension in his broad shoulders. Marcus arrived shortly after, as he always did on nights when Jason needed to share the burden no one else saw. He was 32, fair-skinned with brown eyes, filled with a hard-earned wisdom, entering with the usual mix of firmness and concern in his gaze, knowing that here lived a man hiding deep scars, both visible and invisible. They sat on the dark brown leather couch, the dim light from a lamp casting shadows that danced on the walls. Marcus held a bottle of whiskey and, without saying a word, offered a shot to Jason, who accepted with a slow gesture, as if the simple act of drinking was a ritual to calm the storm inside. After a long silence, Jason broke the ice, his voice low and heavy, as if each word was painfully forced out. "Have you ever felt so betrayed that you decided no one else deserves your trust? That love is just a cruel illusion." Marcus didn't answer right away, just watched, waiting for Jason to let out what had long been suffocated inside. Then his friend dove into the past, revealing a side rarely seen. "It was different that time. I really believed it would last forever. But everything fell apart. She didn't just cheat on me with someone else. She used me. What hurts most wasn't the betrayal itself, but the fact that I was so blind, so naive, that I didn't see the signs." Jason gripped the glass, his fingers trembling slightly. Marcus sighed, feeling the pain radiating from his friend. "And since then, you shut the doors, right? You isolated yourself from the world, from the chance to give yourself." Jason nodded, eyes now moist, but his expression hard. "Exactly. I became a fortress, but an empty one. I don't want to suffer anymore. I don't want to lose myself again in false promises." "And what does that mean for now? For us? For Emily?" Marcus asked, knowing the topic was delicate. Jason took a deep breath, looking out at the city lights. "With Emily, it's different. I can't allow myself to get involved. This is just a facade, a convenience deal. It's my shield to avoid what I really want, someone who could hurt me again." Marcus studied his friend for a moment, understanding. There was a much bigger internal battle than any facade could hide. "You're afraid, Jason, afraid to open up, to trust. But what if this facade is the bridge to something real, to a chance at redemption?" Jason smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes, carrying a sadness that seemed to weigh on his entire soul. "Maybe. But I'm not ready to tear down the walls I've built. Not until I know if I'm strong enough to face the truth. Whatever it may be." Silence returned to the room, heavy and full of unspoken meaning. The city buzzed outside, indifferent to the silent struggle happening inside that apartment. Emily closed the door to her small apartment with a heavy sigh, smelling the familiar scent of coffee and stacked books on the living room table. The walls, painted a soft beige and lit by the shy afternoon light, seemed like silent witnesses to her daily struggle. She let herself fall onto the grey fabric sofa, already worn by use and time, and rested her face in her hands, trying to make sense of the whirlwind of emotions taking over her. Since agreeing to pretend to be Jason's girlfriend, her heart swung between hope and fear, a roller coaster of feelings she couldn't control. The promise of money to pay her family's debt was a tangible relief, but the emotional cost was becoming higher than she imagined. Thinking she had to lie and fake something so personal made her uncomfortable, especially as she noticed that Jason, despite his initial coldness, was starting to show a side few had seen. The next morning, the strong aroma of fresh coffee from the local bakery gave them a brief pause. They sat at a table by the window, where sunlight filtered through the leaves of the street trees, casting shadows that danced on the worn wooden table. Emily looked at Jason, who seemed more tired than the day before, with faint, dark circles, marking his sculpted face and usually flawless brown hair, slightly tousled, hinting at sleepless nights. She took a deep breath, and voice a bit shaky, confessed, "Jason, I don't know how much longer I can do this. Pretending to feel something that isn't real is eating me up inside." He looked away for a moment, fingers lightly drumming on the cup's edge, then met her gaze again, with those blue eyes that seemed to search for some hidden truth. "I know, Emily, it's not easy for either of us, but if maybe this fake thing is starting to feel more real than I want it to." Her heart sped up, confused by that admission. "You said you don't trust anyone since the last betrayal. So, why do you feel something different with me?" Jason closed his eyes as if reliving that old pain, his body tense and voice almost a whisper. "Because you don't act like the others. You don't try to take advantage of me. You're not just interested in my name or what I can offer. That shakes me, scares me, and makes me want to open up even knowing I could get hurt again." Emily felt a tear slip down, her voice faltering as she replied, "But I'm lying, Jason. All this is to get the money my family needs. I never wanted it to be like this, never wanted to hurt anyone." He smiled sadly, a smile showing the weight of his own inner battles. "Maybe we're both stuck in a game neither wanted to play, but if you could see inside me, see the scars I carry, you'd understand why it's so hard to trust." Silence fell between them, dense and full of what wasn't said. Emily looked at Jason's hands, trembling slightly on the table, and saw the man behind the tough facade, a broken man, as vulnerable as she felt. "I'm scared too, Jason," she said finally, voice low. "But I don't know if I can keep pretending when I'm starting to feel that maybe this lie could be something real." He slowly reached out and touched her arm with surprising gentleness. "We don't need to know everything right now. We just need to be honest with ourselves." At that moment, sitting in that modest cafe in Austin, Emily and Jason knew they were on the edge of something that could change their lives forever. The game of lies was becoming a minefield of feelings and truths yet to be discovered, and the worst was still to come. The Whitmore mansion, rising in the heart of Austin, Texas, felt more like a stage for a tense play than the comfortable home it was supposed to be. The imposing walls carried centuries of history, power, and a rigid tradition that Jason felt weigh on his shoulders like armor too heavy to bear. He sat in the main living room, surrounded by classic furniture, burgundy velvet armchairs, and ancestral paintings that seemed to watch him, judging every move. Jason Whitmore was 32 years old, with fair skin slightly tanned by the Texas sun, dark brown hair always neatly styled, and piercing blue eyes that reflected a mix of exhaustion and determination. He wore a tailored navy blue suit, symbolizing his role as heir to the Whitmore fortune, one of the most influential and traditional families in the region. "Jason, you need to understand that your life isn't just yours," said his father, Richard Whitmore, a man in his 60s with perfectly combed-back grey hair and ice-cold blue eyes. "Every step you take is scrutinized, every move evaluated by the society that upholds our reputation." Jason heard the words, feeling the weight of the world in every syllable. "Father, I know the expectations, but Emily is not a threat. She's trying to help, not harm." Richard closed his eyes for a moment, took a deep breath, and continued in a firm voice. "Don't underestimate the power of appearances, Jason. You know very well what happened to your older brother when he chose to follow his heart instead of the family business. The name of his brother Michael hung like a shadow in the air, Michael Whitmore had been disowned years ago after a scandal involving a relationship considered inappropriate, a mistake that cost the family millions and forever stained there. "Good name. I don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past," Jason replied, his voice heavy with conflict, "but I also don't want to live a lie." Meanwhile, in a simple apartment on the opposite side of town, Emily adjusted the dark blue dress that barely covered her knees. The yellowish light of the lamp revealed her features marked by fatigue and anxiety. She was 27 years old, with fair skin and delicate freckles across her nose and cheeks, dark blonde hair always tied back in a simple ponytail, and green eyes carrying a mix of hope and fear. Sitting at the small dining table, her mother held her hand, offering silent strength. "Daughter, I know it's not fair, but you have to be strong. This opportunity might save our home, our debts." Emily looked at her mother, her voice trembling. "But what if they never accept me? What if I never belong in that world?" Her mother smiled with tears in her eyes. "You belong to a world no one can take away, Emily. The world of love, courage, and dignity." On the night of the charity dinner, the mansion was decorated with white flowers and delicate candles, the main hall lit by grand chandeliers. Guests dressed elegantly whispered among themselves with critical and judging looks. Jason entered beside Emily, feeling the weight of every gaze directed at her. Emily squeezed his hand, her heart racing as she heard low giggles and whispers. "Who is that girl? Do you think she's really up to it?" Jason tried to smile, but the stiffness in his face betrayed the pressure he felt. "Don't pay attention to them. You are more than they can understand." When Jason felt his phone vibrate in his jacket pocket, he almost hesitated before looking. The message was from his sister, Claire, a woman with whom he had a complicated relationship, but who had always been a key player in the family's secrets. "It's Claire," he said quietly, his voice tense. "She said she found something that could change everything for us." Emily looked into his eyes, fear and curiosity mixed, knowing that from that moment on, nothing would be the same. The morning seemed ordinary at the Whitmore mansion, but for Jason, everything was far from normal. The sun shone brightly over Charleston, lighting the walls adorned with old paintings and classic furniture, while he remained seated at the large mahogany desk, staring at the papers before him. His mind, however, was completely consumed by an invisible threat, heavy like a burden he couldn't shake. Hours earlier, his phone had vibrated non-stop with messages and silent calls, until finally a call woke him from his restlessness. It was Melissa, his ex-girlfriend. Melissa was no ordinary woman. Her presence always sent a shiver of discomfort through Jason. Intense red wavy hair falling over her shoulders with a shine that contrasted with her cold, calculating eyes. Her pale skin was flawless, a result of a vanity that seemed to reflect her dominant and controlling personality. She was a constant presence from Jason's past, a shadow that seemed never to disappear. "Jason," her voice sounded firm, almost threatening, on the other end of the line. "You know exactly what I'm talking about." Jason swallowed hard, feeling a knot grow in his stomach. "Melissa, what exactly do you want?" She laughed, a low and cruel sound. "That deal you made with Emily. People are starting to whisper. You think you can hide it forever? This charade you two are living? I can end it all. Destroy her reputation, ruin your image, and you know that could be fatal for your business." Jason gripped the phone tightly, trying to control the anger burning inside him, mixed with a real fear of losing what little he had built. "You won't succeed, not as long as I'm here." "Oh, but that's exactly what we're going to find out, dear. Either you do what I ask, or I'll make sure everyone knows who she really is and who you really are." The heavy silence filled the call before Melissa hung up, leaving no chance for a response. Jason stayed still, feeling the weight of the threat descend on him like a storm about to break. Late in the afternoon, he drove to the small cafe where Emily worked to help pay the bills that the deal never fully covered. She was sitting at the corner table, hands clasped, her expression tired and her green eyes shining with a mix of fear and determination. Her delicate face, shaped by soft features and fair skin with a slight natural tan, showed signs of sleepless nights and deep worries. Jason approached slowly, trying to hide the whirlwind of emotions he felt. She looked up and forced a smile, but he saw the tension hidden behind that gesture. "Emily," he began, sitting across from her, "we have a problem. Melissa knows about our situation. She wants to use it against you, against us." Her face changed, as if the air had been knocked out of her lungs. But why? Why would she do that? He took a deep breath, trying to find the right words to calm the storm forming. "Because she wants to control everything, even what doesn't belong to her, and she wants me to do something so she'll stop." Emily bit her lip, her vulnerability clear to Jason. "Jason, I don't want you to get hurt because of me." He held her hands, feeling both warmth and fragility at the same time. "It's not just about the deal, Emily. I don't want to lose you. Not this time." She looked at him, eyes moist, reflecting a mix of surprise and confusion. An intense silence filled the space between them, a silence full of promises and an uncertain future. As they returned to the mansion, tension hung in the air like a heavy fog, but there was something different, a seed of hope and a new feeling, threatening to break all the barriers they had built to protect themselves. The news of Helen's hospitalization, Emily's mother, came like a cruel shock on a grey Charleston morning. Emily was in her small apartment with peeling walls and simple furniture, where every corner held memories of a hard childhood, when the phone rang with that dry sound that seemed to announce disaster. The doctor's voice, firm and worried, confirmed the worst: severe pneumonia, a delicate condition, immediate hospitalization needed. Emily felt the ground give way beneath her feet, and the silence in the room tightened her chest like an invisible fist. The world around her seemed to spin faster, the household bills, the debt threatening to swallow her family, the responsibilities weighing on her young, tired shoulders. Tears began to fall quietly as she tried to organize her thoughts. At that moment, fear and loneliness consumed her. She was alone, facing her mother's suffering, with her unstable job, and the constant pressure to maintain the fake relationship with Jason to pay their debts. And as if fate wanted to test her strength, Jason's message arrived almost instantly. "I'm on my way. You won't have to go through this alone." When Jason entered the hospital waiting room, his imposing presence contrasted with the vulnerability he saw in Emily's eyes. He wore a dark suit, his tie already loose, a serious expression, but there was something different in his gaze, a genuine shine of concern he did not show publicly. He approached carefully, sitting beside her and offering a tissue to dry her tears. "Emily, I know this is hard, but you don't have to carry this weight alone." She took a deep breath, trying to keep her composure. "Jason, I don't want to involve you in this. It's my fight, my problem." He held her hand firmly, a silent connection that said more than words. "It's not just your fight, Emily. We're in this together, even if it started as a fake deal." During the following hours, Jason surprised Emily with his dedication. He talked with the doctors, asked about her mother's condition, and even helped organize hospital paperwork, something totally outside his usual routine as a successful businessman. In a rare moment, Jason prepared a small meal for Emily at the hospital cafeteria, a simple gesture that broke invisible barriers. As they watched Helen sleep, Jason lowered his voice, revealing a rare part of his soul. "I always thought trust was a weakness. After what happened in my past, I closed my heart to the world. But seeing you here fighting so hard makes me think maybe it's time to try again." Emily felt a different kind of warmth growing inside her, a shy but real hope. I was scared too. Scared to let myself feel something real for you, but I don't think I can deny anymore that something is changing. That moment, heavy with silence and emotion, marked a turning point in their relationship. It wasn't just a contract or a convenient agreement anymore. It was the beginning of a connection that could change their lives, if they could face what was still to come together. The afternoon sun filtered through the windows of Jason's elegant apartment, casting long shadows that seemed to foreshadow the tense mood between them. The space, once the setting for hesitant conversations and moments of closeness, now simmered in a heavy silence, full of unspoken resentments and fleeting glances. Jason was leaning against the kitchen counter, his face set in a hard expression, his intense blue eyes flashing with a mix of anger and frustration. Emily, standing beside him, felt her heart tighten, as if every word he spoke could break her apart. She tried to find the strength to defend herself, but the pain of the accusation was stronger than any argument. "Do you think I'm a fool, Emily? That all of this was just a game to you? That I'm just a means to your end?" Jason's voice was cold, almost cutting, echoing through the small apartment. She swallowed the sadness, threatening to spill into tears, trying to stay composed. "Jason, I never wanted you to feel used. Yes, I needed the money, but I wasn't the one who asked. To pretend, and even though it all started like that, it's not just that anymore. Not just that." He took a step toward her, the tension rising between them like a storm about to burst. "Then why do I feel like you're always distant? Like you never really care about me. You never wanted anything but the paycheck at the end of the month." Emily felt those words like knives tearing through her soul. "You know that's not true. I care more than you think." Jason looked away, his wounded pride clear in every movement. "Maybe I'm an idiot for believing you. Maybe it's time to end this before we destroy each other for good." The silence that followed was overwhelming. Emily felt her world shatter into pieces, the farce she feared most finally exposed in its cruelest form. She knew that staying in that agreement would only make her lose more of herself. With a trembling voice, she made her decision. "So that's it. If you think I'm just a pretty face and an excuse to keep up appearances, I'm leaving. I'll end our contract and live my life alone. Better that than keep fooling myself." Jason didn't respond right away. His eyes showed a mix of sadness, anger, and a little regret. Emily, already with her bags packed, felt an unexpected strength growing inside her. She would no longer be a victim of fear or necessity. It was time to fight for her own dignity, even if it meant walking alone. As she closed the door behind her, a cruel emptiness hung in the air, but also a silent promise that their story was not over yet. What would come next? Only time would tell. Jason sat alone in his apartment's living room, the dim light of the lamp creating an almost somber atmosphere. The door had closed behind Emily minutes before, and the heavy silence was almost suffocating. He held an old photograph showing him young and smiling next to his parents, but that smile now seemed distant, as if hiding a secret too heavy to share. His heart was racing, a mix of fear and relief at the same time. Finally, he decided he needed to tell the truth, not just to her, but to himself. He picked up his phone and, after hesitating, called Emily. Her voice on the other end was shy, almost surprised. "Emily, I know you're hurt, and I don't expect you to understand everything right now, but there's something I need to tell you. Something that's been eating me up inside for years." Emily was silent, feeling a lump in her throat. "What is it, Jason? You can tell me." He took a deep breath, as if pulling strength from deep inside his soul. "My family has a serious genetic disease. It's something few people know about because I've always tried to hide it. It's not just fear of losing business or status, it's fear of losing myself." "Disease? What disease, Jason? Why didn't you tell me before?" Her voice, now trembling, revealed a mix of surprise and pain. He closed his eyes for a moment, his voice heavy with emotion. "It's a condition that affects my nervous system. It can be debilitating, and the chances I'll develop symptoms are high. That's why I've always kept my distance. I didn't want anyone, especially you, to suffer because of me. I thought if I stayed emotionally distant, I'd be protecting everyone, including myself." Emily shivered, imagining the weight of that truth, a burden Jason silently carried while pretending to be strong for the world. "Jason, I didn't know. If I had known, I would have tried to be by your side for real," she said, her voice breaking, a mix of sadness and compassion. He smiled, a sad, almost resigned smile. "I know, and maybe I was wrong not to trust you, but fear blinded me. The fear of losing everything, my family, my image, and maybe even myself." The silence between them now was different, filled with a new understanding. That secret, finally revealed, changed everything. Emily realized that the emotional distance wasn't contempt, but a shield protecting against an uncertain future. "Jason, no matter what happens, I want to try to understand and be by your side. If you'll let me." He took a deep breath, feeling for the first time the relief of sharing a burden. "I want that too, Emily. I want to try, even if everything is against us." The call ended, but the truth had just opened a door between them. A door that, despite doubts and fear, could lead to something real, something worth fighting for. The morning in Chicago was cold and grey, as if reflecting the whirlwind of emotions Emily felt as she walked through the busy city streets. She pulled her coat tighter against the biting wind, but her heart was even colder, full of doubts and regrets. The past few weeks had been a harsh test for her and Jason. The revelation of the genetic disease, the fights, the wounded pride, everything seemed to push them apart for good. But that morning, something inside her had changed. The distance and silence had shown her how much she missed him. The Jason she had met beneath the masks, the man who hid his vulnerabilities behind a bitter smile. She knew it was time to stop running and face whatever came. By his side, at the modern building where Jason lived, Emily hesitated for a moment at the door. She took a deep breath and decided she couldn't let fear control her anymore. She rang the bell. When the door opened, Jason looked surprised, his eyes still carrying that shadow of pain, but now mixed with hope. "Emily, you came," he said softly, almost unbelieving. She smiled, her eyes shining with emotion. "I had to come. I can't stay away from you. Not after everything I've learned about us. About you." He stepped aside to let her in, and they stood face to face, as if time had stopped. The honesty in Emily's gaze was clear, and Jason felt the weight of loneliness ease. "I know everything has been hard. The fear, the illness, my family's demands, and maybe I was too hard on you," he admitted, gently touching her hand. She squeezed his hand tightly, as if to claim her place. "Jason, I don't want to pretend anymore. I want to be by your side, with all the imperfections, with all the battles we'll have to face." He pulled her into a firm embrace, like he wanted to blend their fears and hopes into one. "I've always wanted to protect you, but I understand. Now that true love isn't protection from a distance, it's walking together, even when the path is hard." Emily rested her head on his chest, feeling a warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. "We'll face everything, Jason. Prejudice, illness, whatever comes, together." That moment sealed a silent pact between them, a commitment to face the unknown, the fear, the judgments, but above all, to support each other. The love that had grown between them wasn't perfect, but it was real, and for the first time, they were ready to let it grow. Jason held Emily's face, looking deeply into her blue eyes. "Thank you for not giving up on me," She smiled with tears in her eyes. "I would never give up on the man I learned to love, with all his fears and dreams." And on that grey morning, amid the chaos of the city that never sleeps, two hearts decided to beat as one, ready to face any storm that might come their way. On that clear, fresh spring morning, the shy sun softly lit the spacious balcony of Jason's Chicago apartment, casting delicate shadows over the flowers in the garden surrounding the building. The air smelled sweet from the azaleas, and the gentle whisper of the wind seemed to carry the promise of a new beginning. Sitting side by side in an old wooden rocking chair, Jason and Emily shared a silence full of meaning, not the distant, tense silence of the first weeks, but one filled with understanding and hope. Jason, with a forehead marked by lines that told of sleepless nights and inner battles, held Emily's hand with gentle firmness. His deep blue eyes, heavy with a mix of pain and redemption, met hers, revealing what words often couldn't express. He broke the silence, his voice low and sincere. "Emily, I used to believe love was something simple, a beautiful ideal everyone should reach. But I learned that true love is much more complex. It's not just about happy moments, perfect gifts, or empty promises. Love is about being honest, about showing the most fragile parts of our soul, the ones we're afraid the world will see." Emily squeezed his hand, feeling a mix of emotion and relief. Her fair skin contrasted with the warmth of his touch, and her delicate face, marked by a few worry lines, was now softened by a sincere smile. She took a deep breath before answering. "And it's not just honesty, Jason. It's also about forgiveness, forgiving the other, forgiving ourselves. For a long time, I lived hiding who I really was, pretending feelings to survive, to save my family. I was afraid to let myself feel for real. But with you, even pretending at first, I learned that the courage to be vulnerable can change everything." Silence wrapped around them again, softer this time, like an invisible hug connecting them. Jason looked out at the horizon, at the city waking up below with its tall buildings and busy streets. It was a Chicago he knew well, but that felt different. In that moment, full of possibilities, "Emily, I've always been afraid to get involved because my past taught me to distrust. The illness in my family, the fear of what might happen to me, all that kept me away from the people I loved. But you showed me I don't have to carry this burden alone, that loving someone means accepting help, accepting to be helped, even in our weaknesses." She turned to him, her eyes full of tears. She tried to hide. "We've faced so much, the differences in our lives, society's judgment, other people's expectations. But still, here we are, showing that love has no social class, that it can overcome prejudice and fear." Jason squeezed her hand tightly, as if to make sure nothing from that moment slipped away. "And what we've built is not just a relationship. It's a story of overcoming, of truth, that can inspire anyone who looks at us. Because in the end, what matters is being true to ourselves and to the ones we love." Emily rested her head on his shoulder, feeling the warmth of that touch, a connection that no contract, no lie, could ever break. "I want to keep writing this story with you, Jason, no longer as a game, but as a real life, full of challenges, but also hope." They stayed like that, wrapped in that peaceful moment, while the sun climbed higher, promising a future where true love could bloom even in the driest soil. Both knew they would still face battles, prejudice, and fears, but now they had something greater: the courage to be vulnerable, the strength of forgiveness, and the certainty that together they were unstoppable. As the city pulsed outside, Jason and Emily began writing a new chapter, a chapter where true love wasn't just a dream, but a reality built on honesty, forgiveness, and the courage to show their imperfections and still be loved. "So, what did you think of this story? I really want to know your opinion. Leave a rating from 0 to 10 in the comments to show how much you liked it. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any updates. Before you go, I've picked another moving story that will touch you even more. Stay tuned so you don't miss it.